But is this part of the strategy to slowly dole out ideas like this as we make our way to November?
It's part of the strategy to slowly dole out ideas. It's part of the strategy to appeal to blue-collar workers, and it's part of the strategy to turn the page on a disastrous debate performance earlier this week as well. Wow. So it's a trifecta of sorts for the former president here with this rollout.
Well, of course, it's not just policy the former president is talking about in his campaign appearances or on the debate stage, for that matter, where he raised Springfield, Ohio, and the idea that Haitian immigrants, are eating dogs. He said this at his Los Angeles event earlier today when asked if he would visit Springfield, Ohio.
We will do large deportations from Springfield, Ohio. Large deportations. We're going to get these people out. We're bringing them back to Venezuela. We're going to have the largest deportation in the history of our country, and we're going to start with Springfield and Aurora.
Now, it is worth pointing out, Mario, that many of the people that are being talked about in Springfield are here legally. They are immigrants to this country, and Haitian, not Venezuelan. But this comes at a time in which President Biden is criticizing Trump's rhetoric, saying there's no place for it in America, and yet he continually seems to be doubling down on this.
No, and this goes to some of the echo chamber of the far-right media stratosphere, right, that we know that the former president likes to indulge in. Some of the folks who are around him, that's been reported on this week as well, within his immediate circle. Listen, when you're in that type of bubble and you're under duress, those are the type of things that come out. If that's those are the type of things that you've kind of been feeding yourself, if you will, right? We know that he has a propensity to delve into conspiracy theories. His political career was on the back of the birther lie, right, about former President Obama. Now you're saying even Republicans take him to task. The poetry and the symmetry of this all is that his campaign says that Ohio, with the train derailment, was a turning point for his campaign. And at this point, Ohio may very well be the thing that's souring him with independent voters.
What's the Harris campaign doing with all of this IP that he's leaving on things like eating animals in Springfield, executing babies after they're born, conducting sex change operations on kids while they're at school without the parents knowing, things that are clearly not actually happening in states around the country? They've got a very savvy team when it comes to social media, when it comes to community outreach. What are they doing with all of this?
And going back to the whole point about symmetry, right? The fact that Donald Trump won the first debate is because he let Joe Biden speak. You're seeing Harris do that now. She did that at the debate earlier this week as well. And now her team just essentially amplifies what the former president is saying. For the longest time this year, Democrats just couldn't figure out a way to stir the angst with Americans on what life under Donald Trump was like, right? Some of the drama there. And now you're seeing it at a crucial point in the election cycle.
Indeed. All right, Bloomberg's Mario Parker, thank you so much, as always, for joining us. Now, also at his event in Los Angeles, Trump said he has no intention of selling shares of his media company, Trump Media and Technology Group, the parent company of Truth Social, once the blackout period ends.
No, I'm not selling. No, I love it. I mean, I use it as a method of getting out my word. When it opened, it went way high, but then the SEC gave us nothing but problems. We had to go through a long process with the SEC. But people think that I'm leaving. That's why they're down, because if I leave, it's different if I leave. But I'm not leaving. I love it.
Trading of DJT was halted for volatility twice after the stock shot up on his remarks. It closed 12% higher on the day, Joe.
Meantime, Congress has left town for the weekend without addressing the government funding deadline looming at the end of this month. They came back for a couple of days. They have little to show for it. The House did pass a series of bills aimed at China this week. Let's bring in Bloomberg's Megan Scully for more on this. Megan leads our congressional coverage. Messaging bills, we call these. How about the real business at hand? We have no plan to fund the government right now.
That is true. But we are still only in mid-September, and they like to do these things at the last moment.
That's a ways off.
Wait, we've plenty of time.
18 days from now.
Some of this legislation, though, that passed this week was actually somewhat interesting, particularly a bill that was called the Biosecure Bill, which essentially, our own analysts here at Bloomberg Intelligence, give a 70% chance of becoming law. So it's more than messaging. And this is kind of the next iteration in the TikTok playbook, where they're essentially going after Chinese biotech companies and their U.S. subsidiaries and preventing them from having any kind of contracts with the government, which is incredibly lucrative in this area. Yeah. So, I do think that could become law this year, and it might be sort of the next evolution in this push in China, this push in Congress, which, is bitterly divided, but they do seem to agree, at least the vast majority, on this one area, which is China.
Yeah, very few areas of bipartisan compromise, but maybe being hawkish on the second largest economy is one of them. If we could just think about the way all of this plays electorally, it is, of course, happening in the context of an election year and when they're trying to keep hold of the House, if you're Republicans, and also trying to flip the Senate. The Cook Political Report this week made a change to one of those Senate seats. Montana now leans red, not a toss-up for the incumbent Jon Tester. Does that make it all but a given Republicans flip the Senate?
Not yet. There are several sort of interesting states to be watching. First of all, I would not count Jon Tester out just yet. He is down in the polls, but Montana is a notoriously difficult state to get accurate polling in. Tester is a longtime incumbent. He's brought billions of dollars in federal funds to the state. So I would not count him out. It doesn't look good for him. And Trump is, of course, going to carry Montana pretty easily. So, but abortion is on the ballot. That could work in Tester's favor. We'll see. But if Democrats lose Montana, then and all else remains the same, then they do lose the Senate. But there are some other interesting races percolating. I've talked about Florida, for instance. Texas is always kind of a long shot for Democrats, but it is looking more and more competitive. And Nebraska, interestingly enough, is a state where I'll be keeping a close eye on that Senate race. It is an incumbent, Deb Fischer, who's a Republican, running against an independent. Of course, not a Democrat, but that independent, were he to win and caucus with the Democrats, would give them a pickup seat, which, if they lost Montana, would offset that.